Welcome to the Rich, Young, and Powerful podcast. This is the place where we help average givers become everyday philanthropists. I'm your host, Andrew McNair, a financial commentator, author, nine-figure wealth manager, and philanthropist too. I'm going to show you how to give more, how to find more fulfillment, and help you impact the causes that you care about the most. Because when a giver gives more, they receive and become more. And today I'm really excited about bringing on our special guest. Bethany Hamilton is a pro surfer, an author, and I really enjoyed watching the adaptation of her biography. So I hope if you haven't heard from Bethany before that you're really inspired to hear from her testimony and her story. So Bethany, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, we're really excited to have you here. And so I would love for you to share with those who maybe have never heard your story, if you would mind sharing about that.
Yeah, so I'm Bethany. I'm often known as a shark attack survivor and a surfer, but I'm so much more than that. I was born and raised in Hawaii to two amazing, hardworking parents who were kind of surfer hippies and Christians. And that's the two things the three things I say they impressed on me, and a few more actually. But they impressed on me just their love for the ocean, their love for God, and they're just amazing humans. And so, yeah, I had just an amazing childhood. I grew up with the ocean as my playground and developed my own love for the ocean. And I also came to know God at a pretty young age and developed my own childlike faith. And so when I was, growing up, I was pretty competitive. So was kind of like winning every event I entered.
Wow.
And then at 13, I lost my arm to a shark, which was not the plan that I had in mind for my life. But cool thing is, I think God can take some of the most awful things and turn them into something really beautiful and purposeful.
Absolutely.
So I continued surfing and learned how to do it all with one arm. And I was honestly just being me, like going after the life I always wanted to live. And that kind of led to, I just continued competing even, and I went on to have a professional career and break a lot of boundaries or push women surfing in a lot of different ways, and also share my story in some really unique ways to empower others to overcome their tough moments in life. And I would say that's probably one of my greatest passions now, is just inspiring others to overcome their hardship. So a lot of my life involves doing stuff with that, but I'm also a mother of three with one on the way.
Wow.
Amazing husband, and we kind of just do life together, and yeah, a lot of fun along the way.
Well, it's really great to be having you on the show, because last year I did what felt like the Hawaiian tour. I went to Maui, then we went to the Oahu, then we went to Kauai, and it was two separate trips. And I think I'm a little biased. I know you'll probably disagree, but Kauai is one of my favorite islands. But you can just feel this culture of just this the water and just having it so close. And I think it's because it's so isolated. It's just an amazing. So when you keep on talking about the water, I'm like, I'm going back to
Yeah.
those shores and daydreaming. So beautiful place that you live.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. Even growing up here, I don't get much island fever, though I do naturally travel a lot, but I'm also content to just hang loose here.
Well, no surprise there. It's a good place to hang loose. What about habits, though? I love hearing about athletes' habits. What habits do you think you had to nurture to become the pro surfer that you are? I mean, what habits, and did that change after the accident?
Yes. So I always say surfing probably taught me more than almost just about anything in life, besides my faith in God and God's word, and maybe my parents. But surfing is arguably one of the hardest sports in the world to take on, let alone master. So growing up with it as my playground, I was very competitive. So eventually started competing, but before the competition, like some days the ocean is just not so nice and it's just sending you back to the beach. Your
On
muscles,
you right back.
your mind is like frustrated and it can just bring out all the emotions under the sun. It's so humbling. But yet it has this like continual draw, this beauty, this lure, this kind of like rush that you can't get anywhere else in life, in my mind. And it's just such a beautiful place to be. And it's also a place to like slow down and just be present and let go of like things on land. And there's just so much goodness to be had out there. But Summerlin taught me a lot about enduring, pushing through mentally and physically. It's so humbling. So I think, we all need to be humbled at times in life. And so for me, I feel like the ocean's continually doing that. Like you think you're like the best surfer one day, and then the next day you're like falling off left and right and just being completely put in your place. But yeah, I just and then it continued eventually, like after I lost my arm, what I really loved about the ocean was it was just an even playing field. Like the ocean wasn't gonna be easier on Bethany than it was on Bethany's brother or the older, stronger, more, capable human next to me. The ocean was going to do the same to me as it was to everyone around me. And I love that, just like it wasn't going to baby me. And so learning to do that, I knew how to surf, I understood the ocean, but I just had to adapt and do it with one arm. And no doubt that was super hard. But once I figured that out, I was like, whoa, I can do anything. It kind of built this confidence in me to just be willing to try other hard things and put myself out there in uncomfortable situations and overcome that fear and doubt. Because no doubt I had that. I wasn't sure I wasn't going to be able to surf with one arm. I didn't know anyone who surfed with one arm. And so I was kind of exploring a new territory as far as like what was possible. And I'm just so glad that I was willing to try. And I love just encouraging people like be willing to try whatever it is that you're scared of or not sure of. Like I'd rather at least try than kind of live my life like having interest in something but ignoring it. And so that willingness to try is something that I hadn't seen anyone else do. Um, it pushed my life in a trajectory I don't know if I could have ever imagined the life that I lived. And yeah, it was just like such a fun adventure. Still to this day, it's my happy place. And I'm super stoked because a couple of my children are taking on the sport. And
Oh,
I'm
neat.
not like, oh, you guys got to be competitive. I just want them to enjoy the ocean. And I know that there's so much they can learn from being out there and being challenged. And so, yeah.
Well, I'd also love to hear your testimony. Who was it in your life that helped lead you to God?
Yeah, so definitely my mom is probably the most influential person in my faith. Also, my dad. Um, but just growing up, we went to church. But I really enjoyed that my mom would just pray with me and read the Bible with me, and it was really fascinating. Like when I before I lost my arm, specifically 2 weeks before, I was praying with my mom, like, Lord, use my life. I don't want to be just a surfer. Like, I want to honor you with my life. And I just want to do more than just, surf. Like, at about age of 13, I really had my sights set. Like, I thought I was going to be a world champ. Like, I had big dreams already. I was kind of like a mini super athlete. And so but then I lost my arm and I was like, okay, God, this is not what we had in mind. But I also, like, alongside of that prayer of like, make me more than just a server, like, I want my life to honor you, God. Um, I think I had this sense of peace that God was in control during that time. And I also just knew that there was a world of need out there. And so as I got back on my board, I started to receive letters from people all over the world saying, like, if you can get back on your board, I can get back on mine. Not necessarily surfing, but their version of a surfboard. And in my mind, even at 13, I was like, whoa, like that's so cool. By me just doing my thing and like getting back on my board, it's empowering other people to get back on theirs. And so I already kind of like grasped the concept of like by sharing my story, it's going to empower other people in their life. And maybe they'll come to know God too. And so, yeah.
What surprised me is in the podcast already how many times, and there's a great quote about this, but I'm gonna just make my own version of it. Is the Lord oftentimes has to bruise someone before they can bless someone, and I think it is very humbling. And even times when we say a prayer like that, use my life. And many times the Lord says, I'm looking for someone like that, someone that's willing to be humble, willing to be utilized. And sometimes we have to have like Paul says, a thorn in our side to be humble. And out of that weakness, the Lord says, I can use that. And that way that you don't get any of the glory, but God gets the glory. And I think your testimony is a great example of that.
Thank you. And just to touch on too, how my mother raised me, she would pray with me, she would read the Bible with me, and it wasn't super fancy or special. It was just very simple, beautiful faith. And I think that did so much more for my life than I can even comprehend. And I'm just so grateful for how she loved on me that way.
And I've seen that a lot as well, and so I love hearing your story because oftentimes discipleship starts in the home, and I talk about this in my book, how that those who are generous typically had a generous person in their family, maybe a grandfather, a grandmother, a parent that exampled discipleship. And I think that as parents, it's very important that we are praying with our kids, that we are reading the Bible with them, in front of them, and that we're valuing going to church. As simple as that might be, I think, going to church starts on Saturday, not on Sunday. It's, hey, this is the most important day. It's our first day of our week. And if we have to change our Friday and our Saturday plans to make sure that we're communing with the saints, then that's what we're going to do.
Love that.
How about this one? I always love asking this but I'd love to hear yours tell me about a time in your story when God showed up in a big way and it changed everything.
Um, yeah. I don't know. I feel like God's just always been really faithful. And even when I wasn't like calling on him or looking to him to be my strength in time, it's just continually been my strength. And I'd say more in my adult life, just like continually grasping what the grace of God means.
Mm.
I'm always sharing this verse because it's my favorite, but John 16:33. I have said these things to you that in me you will have peace. In the world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And to me, just hearing this continually and saying it continually, there's always more hardship to be had. There's more challenge, there's more struggles. You look at the world around you. If you're not currently facing something super challenging, there's likely a lot of people around you facing something super challenging. And so remembering that, well, God told us there will be challenge, there will be hardship, there will be pain. But he also said, in me, you will have peace and take heart. I have overcome the world. And I would say that's just like hearing God's word continually is what strengthens me. It's less about like these special, like hurrah moments and more of this continual journey of faith of like trusting in God to carry us through the different times. So for me lately, I feel like it's like marriage and motherhood and like adult life and like
You need God to show up in a big way, being mom of what, about to be 4, is that right?
Yes.
You need God to show up in a big way on a living basis.
Yes, and some days feel really hard, but for the most part, I'm just so grateful and like I absolutely love being a mom, but I'm definitely looking to God to be my strength. And I'm just continually encouraged that when I get to the end of the day, if I didn't rock it, I have God's grace and I have his promises to carry me through. And that is greater than any of the hardship or the mistakes or just the tough moments, you know?
Our show is about biblical stewardship and giving and philanthropy. I would like to turn, the really at this point and talk about stewardship. And because as things have come your way, opportunities with sponsorships and movie deals and book deals, what do you say to someone who's on the opposite, who has had a financial loss? What would you say to that person that says, I've had a financial loss, I've had something that caught me off guard and I just am not ready yet to give? What would you say to encourage them?
Yeah, I mean, that's super hard, and I can see how that would be really hard to kind of find your your desire to give. You probably have your guard up a bit and you're just like trying to work through that situation. And I think like there's so many ways we can continually give. I mean, some people literally can't give at a certain place or time or place. Like my parents worked so hard. We grew up very simple, very humble, and just seeing them give in different ways was such a blessing. And I'm so grateful to see how hard they've worked over the years. And I feel that carrying over into my own life.
Mm.
Um, but I think at the end of the day, too, it comes back to like trusting in the Lord to provide, but also learning from our mistakes and trying to like move forward with this, like, okay, how can I move forward with a better approach? And also, how can I trust in the Lord? Like, I was stressing about something other day, and I was like, wait, why am I stressing about this? Like, God's more than provided for my family and I shouldn't be like making such a big deal. But I think we all do that at times, and that's just human nature. But being able to catch those moments and remember that, like, the Lord is faithful to provide for all our needs.
Sure. One other question, and I think you'll be able to answer this one is, I think most people do wait for a financial Goldilocks period where everything will be right in their finances to give. Like, and that Goldilocks period's very rare or never happens. And I think you can help us answer this by how did you know after the accident? How did you know it was the right time to get back in the water? How did you have the strength to do that? Of course, leaning on the Lord, but how did you know?
Well, getting back in the ocean was at first I didn't think I would surf with one arm, but then I had a really cool conversation with a friend who said, "Hey, I think you can surf with one arm." He had lost his leg to a shark and actually learned how to surf with one leg. And so I got that hint of inspiration. And then I was just determined because for me, surfing wasn't just like, throwing a frisbee out in the yard. It was like a deep rooted passion, something that I woke up excited to do every single day.
And you
Uh,
wanted to be champion at one time.
yeah. And so, yeah, I got back out there and I'm so grateful that I did. And let alone, I did have to overcome my fear of sharks along the way. But the bigger fear was losing surfing. And so I got back out there and it was just my first day in the water was like one of the best moments of my life. But I love that you brought up that Goldilocks period because, or like the idea that we're going to have this like moment where we're like, okay, now's the time to give. For me and my husband, like we've found just certain causes that like, at least we're giving consistently to a couple of causes that are really like we believe in them or we love what the people who are doing them. And it's just like our continual giving. And, we get to like, touch base with them or see what's going on. But
And I think
Um,
that's so important. Like so many times we want to scatter to a lot of different places. I think prioritizing giving to your local church and then picking a few charities, organizations that you can really get plugged into, and then not only give, but give time, give resources, give advice too, I think is really good. And one I want to hear about is the Beautifully Flawed Foundation. So can you share and spotlight what the work they're doing there, what the work you're doing there, and why it's such an important cause?
yeah, so Beautifully Flawed was started by my dad and my sister-in-law and kind of like me and my whole family. And after I'd lost my arm, like our community came around us and supported us so well, that we were just so grateful for that. And it kind of like molded into its own version of what it originally was, I think, set up to be. But our first outreach was to impact people who had had shark attacks or limb loss, traumatic limb loss, immediately reaching out to them, giving them a hint of inspiration and hope during that time, sending a care package, like reminding them, like, hey, even though right now feels like your life flipped upside down, like there's more to life. You can overcome this, and sharing my story a bit through that. And then it kind of transformed into we created retreats for women with limb difference, and now we do both men and women with limb difference,
Wow.
often traumatic limb loss. So there's a lot of mental, physical, emotional trauma going on. And it's just a time for them to come together, find camaraderie, be encouraged in a lot of different areas, faith, health, physical, and just emotional support. And it is one of the raddest events I've ever had the joy of being a part of. I mean, we do it every year. We've been doing it now for over 10 years,
Wow.
uh, sometimes multiple a year. But yeah, I've gotten to be a part of so many cool and rad events, and this one's easily my favorite. And yeah, so
I think
that's
that's
kind of our
urgent.
mission, and it's a really cool one.
I think it's very urgent. I mean, when someone goes through a traumatic event like that, and we have so many where I live is in Pensacola, Florida, and we have so many military veterans that have obviously some traumatic events where they have lost limbs, and the PTSD that surrounds it is life altering if they don't seek help, seek support. And so I think that's really great work that you're doing there. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and I lost my train of thought, but it's just been really I forgot to this is what I wanted to say was, a lot of the women are so empowered that we're seeing, like, a really cool ripple effect. So they're like, "Wait, I can overcome this," and they go out and they're just rocking it. And so I just love that it becomes more a lot of the girls are really pumped to meet Bethany at the event, but then they like become their own version of a Bethany sort of a person, and they're having their ripple effect in their local community and beyond. And so that's what gets us really pumped as we end up sharing other stories through the foundation. And yeah, there's just a really cool ripple effect going on.
I can imagine there's some amazing testimonies that come out of that because when someone has lost, a limb, it's a visual loss. And many of us can relate somehow on a different level that we're all broken at some stage. We've all lost something. And when someone that has lost something physical that we can see, yet they have overwhelming joy, a lost world gets really curious about that. They say, I don't understand. Why are they so happy? They're missing a limb. They're missing multiple limbs. Why are they so excited? It's because they've been made whole by their creator in a different way. And they will have, again, 100% body when in heaven. And so I think there's great joy and there's great testimonies that are probably coming out of that.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, it's just such a good just so much beauty. People often still remorse over my limb loss. I'm like, wait, haven't you seen my life? Like, my life's been really awesome. Like, so much good has come from it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you lost your arm. Like, I'm like, well, I've moved on, so you should move on too. It's
That's
just like this
fantastic.
weird kind of like, I'm kind of like way past that, but thanks.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm sure
but
some
it's
people at first are
interesting
like, she
how,
might be in denial. Like, no, I'm not. I don't have denial. I've moved on from that.
yeah. So it's interesting how we all have different perspectives on life, but just, I think, beautifully flawed, the organization and just my life. It's like this kind of reminder that a lot of good and beauty, especially when God's a part of that journey, can come from what can seem like something so awful and hard.
How do we find out more information about Beautifully Flawed?
Yeah, just check it out, beautifullyflawed.com. Um, and yeah, we're always looking for support. There's so many different, even just through prayer, financial. If you really love the mission, then check out the website, and we're always looking for support. So thanks.
Fantastic. I always love asking this question. What would you say to an amateur surfer on the beach of, I believe it's Makaha, Oahu?
Yeah.
What would you do to encourage them to make the most of their life? If you could go back to the younger you, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah. There's so many different things I would want to say, but I mean, at the end of the day, I look at my life and I think the like most sure and steady thing has been my faith in God. And so I would just remind them of God's love and grace for their life. And there's so much in the world that will leave you discouraged, disheartened, feeling like you're not enough or that you don't have purpose or value out there in the world. And so I would just encourage them to look for what brings you value and to focus on the things that move your life forward and not backwards. And just choose your people wisely. I always think some of the best decisions I made in my entire life were in my teenage and young adult life. Um, there's so much that you can do in that time that can change the trajectory of your life. So choose wisely and just know that you're loved and that you have value in the world and there's more for you, even if you don't necessarily see it in this moment. And just to have fun and pursue something that gets you so pumped to wake up each day and go after it.
I love that advice. Someone like I started in finance at 14. And so a lot of times, people see someone like yourself that's so great at surfing and they think, wow, you know, how do you get so good? Well, you start at a super young age and you do it for a long time. You have to put that 10,000 hours. So I love that you say, go out and chase after it. And you're right. At a young age, so many times we'll say, well, we'll give them time. It's like, no, don't waste that time. It's such great time where you can train your brain to search after that passion and get really good at that passion. I feel like the youth of today need to understand that many times passion comes out of becoming really good at something. Like at first, I was not good at anything financial. I was not trying to manage a hedge fund at 14 years old, but you get really good at finance, and then you drill deeper and drill deeper. And I'm sure that was the same for you. It's like you have to put that 10,000 hours in.
Yes, I worked my arm off. I worked so hard in so many different ways, from on land to in the ocean to pursuing people to help me find my edge or overcome hurdles along the way. There was just so much that I've done. And then even now, just wanting to like enjoy the ocean for fun with my children, I still continue to take care of myself and want to surf at a high level and just have fun with my sport. And I also have other passions that are carrying me in other directions. But yeah, I love just digging into the things that bring me life and that I believe God has given me a talent or a gift towards. And so, yeah, just working at it and doing it every day.
I will make a note though, in the beginning, I was going to say something about it. You were so humble that just saying, hey, I have, the ocean in my backyard. And a lot of people have the ocean in their backyard, but they do not become a pro surfer. Is there anything that you just think made the difference? Because there's a lot of people that live in Hawaii. They live on the coast of California. They live on a coast town. I live on a coast town. But you made the difference to become that pro surfer.
Yeah, I mean, the ocean, kind of how I talked about earlier, it's not very like, yeah, a lot of people love the ocean, but once it gets to a certain point, they're like, oh, it's too much for me. And so I think there's this grit that you need to have out there. But I've seen people from all different walks of life, all different body types, just like charging out there. And so I think those of us that are just like want to go that extra mile really we just benefit from it and we go out there and have so much fun. And yeah, I've been taking a lot of young girls surfing and they're like, wow, this is so fun. I'm like, yes, it is. So one of the best environments to be in, but it only gets like harder. But as it's as it's getting harder, you almost get more and more rewarded. Like you have these like stepping points along the way that just bring you so much like thrill and excitement. And it's like, whoa, I worked hard to get to this place. And now I'm like enjoying this moment of me just like rocking it out there. And so,
Yeah, enjoying that next plateau, that next level, and but still having the tenacity to keep on pushing. So I think that's definitely what makes you special.
thank you.
How about this one? This is a really open question. If you could write one tweet that would be read by everyone in the world, what would you say? You got a blank canvas on Twitter.
Oh, I probably just put out John 16:33. Just
Wow.
do the talking.
You can never go wrong there. How about this one? What are some misconceptions maybe that people have about you, or beautifully flawed? I mean, are there some misconceptions that if you had your chance, like right now, to clear it up, what would you say?
Oh, misconceptions. I don't know.
Well, that's pretty good. Some people have some, and they have to clear them up. But you are very blessed. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like sometimes people are like still ask me like, "Oh, do you still surf?" And I'm like, "Yes, I rock it out there." So I made my documentary Unstoppable, which is like the more documentary version of my. I don't know if people are familiar with it. My story, they've heard of Soul Surfer, which is like a Hollywood version of my story. And then we recreated our own version from childhood to motherhood, and it's called Unstoppable. So it kind of captures the journey of, yeah, you see a lot of the ups and downs that I have in my sport, and just like the moments where it's just like, ah, but then these moments where it's like,
Yeah,
so
that's the real version right there.
yeah.
I just love your lifelong passion for your sport. And not every I think everyone has a lot of athletes have that, but they don't always have the blessing of being able, like golfers do, that can play into their older age, and you can surf for a long, 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 long time. So I think that is amazing that you have the ability to do that.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm trying to aim for some longevity things to help my body just like keep going.
Yeah. I would love for you to, highlight Beautifully Flawed one more time, and tell about that cause, and again how families can find out more information if they want to pray and get involved.
Yeah, another thing I forgot to say too about Beautifully Flawed is if you know any young women or young men with limb difference or traumatic loss, please send them our way because we're always, we're doing retreats yearly. And so we'd love to have them come be a part of it. So even if you know someone that you think would benefit from being a part of our events, that would be awesome because, word of mouth is the best way to kind of spread stuff. So, but yeah, again, our primary focus is helping others who have faced similar events to myself to find their strength, their courage, their grit to keep going, to trust in God, to find their reason to get up each and every day because a lot of them are coming from really dark places or places of doubt, fear, insecurities. And we just want to empower them like, hey, you can keep going. You can find your passion place. You can adapt along the way. And we're just kind of like a friend putting an arm around them along the way. And it's very community oriented too. So a lot of the attendees create a community at the events that are lifelong friends that they can like jam off each other. And so, yeah, just check it out at beautifullyflawed.com. Beautifullyflawedfoundation.com, I think is it.
Perfect. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking some time and telling us more about it and just sitting down and sharing your testimony. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Good to meet you.
Absolutely. That's all we have for this episode of Rich, Young, and Powerful. One thing that would really help us both out and other new potential listeners to find this show and to learn more about Beautifully Flawed is to rate our show. All you have to do is go to iTunes, Stitcher, leave us a 5-star review. It would mean the world to me. Also, be sure to check out our new book, The Giving Crisis, by going to richyoungpowerful.com/book. Also, be sure to check out our new YouTube channel, The Everyday Philanthropist, where I answer questions about tithing, philanthropy, and giving. And just remember, until next time, that when a giver gives more, they receive and become more. See you next time.